because of the transformational potentialities that it's hate. While continually inspiring one another, we can use the word inspiration here in a very basic way. There is inspiration, like in a field of inspiration, magnetic field of inspiration. I and non-I create a singular shared trans-subjectivity, where even traces of each one's earlier or exterior events, co-emerging events, influence the newly arising meeting. Okay, so you can start even to paint in your mind this kind of a field, this kind of web and how it functions. The sharing and exchange of traces of mutually subjectivizing agencies that dwell in different levels create a mutating copoietic net inside a singular transsubjective web. I hope you following me, and I need to use all these words, but I see no other choice, so I simply try to say things slowly. And how did she say? Lend me your poetic ears and relax about the language. It will come back when the structure is a bit more solid, when you get a bit more of that. So, we are talking then about a fluid jointness, a fluid severality, yet there is a relative stability in that, because these events, the encounter events, don't happen in an instant and that's it. It takes time. It takes the time of evolving together. Again, the idea of pregnancy can help us to realize it takes time to reattune to one another. It is a process, it doesn't happen instantly. The instant would be a shock that this system, it will be on the edges of that system, shock events. So we're talking about ongoing functioning transformational potentiality. Now, usually we are asking the question of how to transgress the limit or the borderline, and of how to share or achieve sharing. When we start from the Matrixial, we realize that some of the questions, not all of them, but some of the questions are becoming upside down. And in the opening to an unconscious Matrixial encounter event, the artist cannot not share with another. And she cannot not witness the other. And so, if witnessing is denied, we have to put a question, what was going on in this Matrixial web? But if there is no stopping to the processes, there's not a question of how do I share, there is the question is, for sure we are in some sense sharing, and we cannot not share. And when we pretend not to share, we create some kind of tear in the matrixial tissue, right? We deny the other, and we are harming the other, and we are being not responsible in the matrixial sense. And it can go into abandonment even, because it's very dramatic to abandon when you are already linked in that way. The I and the non-I are witnessing one another. Those who read my book and articles, they know that I write witnessing with an H in the middle, and I take the H inside the brackets. So it with and witnessing one another. You witness and you witness by the same move. And by that, because of that witnessing and witnessing, in the encounter, you become a partial subject of a subjectivity bigger than your own self. You become partialized, vulnerable, and fragilized. The artist doesn't build a defense against this fragility, but accept it, embrace it, work with it, whatever. Transmissibility and transformative potentialities wake up to vibrate the virtual and real strings. Now, I dedicated a few essays to what I call the virtual string. And I follow from Deleuze the object X, for those of you who are acquainted with that concept. And from there on, I show what would be the virtual dimension of the Matrixial. Those who want, I'll give them the reference. I was working that especially when I was thinking about the work of Eva Hesse. Do you know this artist, Eva Hesse? She was, from German origin, lived in New York, and it's printed right now in a book by MIT Press, I think. It's called Eva Hesse Drawing, and in it I treated few subjects, and one of the maternal is one of them, and the virtual matrixiality is another one. It's a whole field. I might maybe with my class enter that if we tolerate, if they tolerate it. But the virtual, of course, is a part of the real, if we really follow Deleuze and if we understand that the real is not realistic. Sensitivities in the encounter are reattuned, unconscious imprints cross-inspire, traces are reaching one another beyond each one's personal boundaries. Inspiring psychic strings co-vibrate, and traces are stored in what I call shareable threads. I make a little distinction in my writing between the shareable strings, which are more real in a sense, the real experience moving between me and you, and we can talk about strings, and threads I use already to take the traces of the shared experience, and this I call thread, and the strings is more vibrating in, if you want, it's more on the level of the real. Threads are already, could be on the level of the imaginary and even the symbolic. But they're still shared, that's the point. And we need to understand this shareability not as sameness. It's not, we don't share the same information, but we share from the same event different information. So it will take another kind of matrixial webbing or border linking with others to get it back, to get the traces into the surface, or to discuss it, to make sense of it, and so on. You don't produce it for yourself, you don't control it alone, and so on. The whole notion of control disappears and something else appears as a force, creative force. The matrixial psychic space, therefore, concerns shareability and severality that evade the whole subject in self-identity, evades endless multiplicity, collective community, and organized society. So it's a web within organized webs. It doesn't obey the governing laws of the communities. So there is the force of resistance. We can talk about the force of resistance of a matrixial encounter, and what are the ways for that resistance. It's not negativity, it's not for or against, it simply doesn't play